Hey everyone, back to another chess video. Today we're going to be looking at a game that I played against a pretty high-rated opponent, 2139. So I've been working on the Queen's Gambit, and in this game I get a chance to showcase a pretty high-level Queen's Gambit game. So I start with d4, he responds d5, c4, the Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit declined, he plays e6. Typically, if you're going to play the Queen's Gambit as white, you have to expect most people to play the Queen's Gambit declined. A lot of people don't want to play into Gambits because they're expecting that their opponent offering the Gambit knows much more about the theory than they do, typically. So they think, let me not play into this Gambit and just play solidly and play safe. You play into Gambits, you open up tactics and pretty quick development for your opponent. And if you don't know how to respond to that, or you're not comfortable responding to pretty, open, aggressive positions, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. So Queen's Gambit declined is what you see a lot if you're going to be playing it as white. Knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5. This is just standard opening for the Queen's Gambit, just developing pieces, oftentimes getting ready to trade off that dark squared bishop and put your pawns on dark squares. Bishop e7, e3, just not looking to trade off yet. Let me open up e3 and get my pieces out and ready to castle. A lot of times this bishop will come here and you can put your queen on c2 and it'll look to trade itself off for that knight. Castles. Bishop d3, it's listed as an inaccuracy, but really it's about the same. It's about even. I'm sure, a grandmaster could probably, exploit that as a weakness, but it's a perfectly fine move. It's still even. h6, trading off the bishop for the knight. Knight g2, c6, castles, e5. This is really the first mistake that happens in the game. Move 9, e5. So at this point, my pieces are all developed. My knight could be maybe on a better square. Maybe this bishop wants to come back, open up the queen's vision to that pawn. But my pieces are all developed. He starts attacking in the center and pushing in the center before two of his pieces are even developed. This knight and bishop really aren't doing anything. This bishop could pretty easily come and start, attacking, but it's not. That's another tempo that black needs to develop his pieces. Maybe he wants this rook on the e-file, but he kind of jumps the gun and launches this pawn at me before he really needs to. So I respond back by taking on d5 and getting ready to maybe open up this bishop in the future. I'm kind of encouraging him to take back with the pawn, and eventually maybe, I can kind of put pressure on that pawn. I can swing my queen out here, put pressure there and there, and I kind of set myself up for taking a little bit more control of the center. E takes d4. I'm not exactly sure, why he was looking to open things up so much. I think it might have been better for him to wait to push e5 and keep things closed and develop, maybe like the knight a little bit, or, the knight like there and, getting ready to come there. But he just jumped the gun a little bit. And he was in a bit of a worse position. Now, I responded with a suboptimal move. I responded with knight there, expecting to trade off the bishop, bring the queen out, and still leave him with a bit of a worse position. It would have been better to take here, would have been trading there, and then we each have one pawn in the center, and, I'm kind of looking at his king. Maybe I can kind of hop my knight, or, reroute my knight somewhere. White is not really better, plus 0.4, so, a little bit edge to white, but nothing crazy. So I end up making a poor move there by trying to trade off my knight for that bishop. C takes d5. I do trade it off. Queen takes, knight takes, and knight c6. So right here, I was thinking, maybe I'll be able to get kind of a little bit cheeky and trade, and then, have a discover check. I didn't really think he was going to fall for it, and he doesn't, but That's kind of what I was thinking. So I wasn't too worried about this trade in the center. And maybe it would have been better for me to kind of slide my knight here, but then I was thinking, this bishop can come here. So what I do is just develop a rook, just rook c1. Just getting my piece better developed. Queen f3, putting some pressure there would have been better. If he develops there, maybe kind of coming there might be an option. But yeah, a bit of a suboptimal move on my part. Knight takes, e takes d4. King h8, looking to avoid any discovered attack, so he is looking to recapture with the queen. I bring my bishop back because I just want to have some vision on that pawn. I'm not interested in losing down a pawn on move 16. Bishop f5. Queen here, looking to allow this trade, damage his pawns, and recapture with the rook. If he developed, if he goes there, I have no problem still trading and either damaging the pawns in that fashion or taking and damaging it there with the queen still on the board. Bishop takes, queen takes, pawn takes. His pawns are now suboptimal. I take it back with the rook. There's 2 open files. We're each going to look to plant our rooks on, and it's basically I'm thinking who is going to be able to get their rooks either to the 7th or 2nd file and start gobbling up some pawns. That's kind of the race we're in. Rook a c8, rook b c1, rook c6. So rook c6, I thought to myself, I don't think that's going to be the best move. You don't have time to put your rooks there. If I trade, you have to take back, and then you have this really ugly looking backwards pawn that's going to be extremely hard to protect. That coupled with this doubled pawn here, I'm thinking to myself, I don't like the pawn structure of black. I think that's probably a mistake if he does that, or if he allows that. So I thought, I don't think this is a game-ending, crushing victory, but I think that's another mistake. Doubled pawns I don't like for him, and that pawn being a backwards pawn I don't like for him. So I take. He takes back, bishop, b takes c6, rook c1. He's got to go, try to get that rook active, so rook b8. b3, just having no shenanigans in that. Rook b4. So he's looking to take my center pawn, allowing me to take c6. But what he forgets is that I can kind of pretty easily just walk my king here and prevent any promotion there. And these 2 pawns are going to start flying down the board pretty quick against this one pawn. And I'm going to make a passed pawn. I'm going to make a passer. So I think to myself, I'm okay giving up that center pawn because I don't think he's going to be able to promote. I think I can simplify into a winning endgame. So rook takes c6. Rook takes b4. And I get my king a little bit closer. Don't want to lose back rank. King g7, getting his king to the center. Rook a6. I didn't think this was a mistake in the game. I get that bringing, my king a little bit closer to the center and disallowing rook d1 is a better move, but I thought, let me start gobbling up pawns. I don't want him coming here and slowly working his pawn that way. I thought, let me, start eating pawns. That's what I wanted to do. But that's going to be a mistake because I think, this one. It allows rook there, and it can slowly start pushing some pawns down the board, which ends up being a bit more of a problem than I thought. I'm still winning. I'm still fine, but it's just not as winning. So rook a6 is an inaccuracy. Rook fd1 check. King e2, there's nothing to do. Rook h1. I thought that's probably a bad move because the danger is right over here. This is where black needs to focus his energies because these 3 pawns are going to meet these 3 pawns, and this king is protecting some, so there's a protector over here. You're not getting really like anything going on the king side before I can get a passer over here. There's a real danger on the queen side of this doubled of these 2 pawns making a pass here, so you better get back to the queen side ASAP. He lets me take rook a7. I have 2 passed pawns on the queen side. I think to myself, I have to be, like, I'm in a much better position. I'm winning. My goal is to promote a pawn as quickly as possible. I play g3 just to protect that pawn. Rook h5 doesn't really protect anything. Maybe kind of swinging, behind there would have been something, but black is worse. Black is much worse at this spot because he allowed these 2 pawns to become just passers, and their job is just fly down the board. That's all they're doing. Rook e5 check. Get my king to the center. f5, a4, king f6. I thought this was a good move, trying to prevent kind of the rook coming there and swinging there. It's still winning, but it looks like a5 was best. Just continue pushing pawns all the way down the board. I thought here and then it would kind of come here, but it looks like that's not really kind of that big of a deal. So king f6, f3, which is an inaccuracy. King e6, rook b7. He's trying to advance pawns as he can, getting, hoping to get a passer, hoping to get this guy passed, but this rook is doing nothing. This rook is just doing absolutely nothing. The king could have to move, and then the rook can move, so that's another tempo, and the king just isn't going to be quick enough to get over there. d4, I support with b4. Give me a check. I take king takes d4. He wastes another wasted move taking that pawn. You're not going to be able to fight these passed pawns, and you're not going to get any of these pawns promoted in time. It's just not going to happen. Rook b5, I was thinking I'm going to push here, and if he ever swings back here, I'm blocking with this rook. So this is a kind of neat little trick that it wasn't the best move in this scenario. It's still winning, but it's not the best move. If you have a passed pawn, let's just say a random move there and here, if they swing, if you have a connected passed pawns, if you swing their rook there trying to attack it, you can block with your own piece and kind of force the trade, and this pawn is still protected. So that's something to keep an eye. If you have connected passed pawns, a rook or a queen even can slide there and kind of force the trade. It's something to keep an eye out for. That's a kind of a defensive resource. King f7, a6, rook takes. Again, taking pawns on the king side for nothing. It's taking it for nothing. I'm bringing all my pawns. These pawns are going to be unstoppable. This is 2 squares away from queening. What are you doing taking pawns on the king side? It's madness. It's absolute madness. Rook b5, looking to go there. I wasn't even worried about this king coming here. He's not getting over in time. He's not getting over. Rook g8, a7. The only move is to block the queening square, but there's just nothing to do. You can't stop these pawns. You could try bringing your king, but then I'm coming here. Even if you push there, once this pawn is there and my king protects it, this rook is free to just wreak havoc on all your pawns, and you're not promoting anything. h5. What I really don't understand is pushing f4 and then on the other pushing h5. I'm assuming he just realized he was lost and was just kind of like making, waiting moves before he resigned, but that made no sense to me. b6, connected pawns. My rook is free to attack whatever it wants. I'm bringing my king over here. I'm eating your rook. I'm promoting. h4 and b7. There's nothing you can do to prevent promotion in some regard. So I knew the game's done. Game's over. You can do whatever you want with these pawns. They're 3 squares away from queening. Doesn't matter. f3. I promote, and he resigns. This was a really instructive game. It wasn't that long. It was only 47 moves. But this was a really instructive game because it's a pretty solid opening from both sides. And what happens is it takes until... We'll skip forward a little bit. And 2021. Really move 20, I guess. Move 20 to have a kind of game-deciding mistake. And what the mistake is allowing this backwards pawn to get formed and my rook to exploit it. So moving rook there, you thought, it was defended by his pawn, but it's actually a weakness because it creates this backwards pawn that you just can't defend. And when I bring my rook there, you can, leave your rook to babysit it, but then my king is going to be coming in and taking the central pawn, taking this pawn. So it's an extremely difficult weakness to defend when you only have a rook and a king. So this is, similar to the game, the video I had with the National Master game, where it's even, crack. And that is really how a lot of games go above like 2000, 2100, is that both people know how to play very solid and safe in the opening and get to a safe middle game. And then it can be something like a blunder, a loss of an exchange, losing a pawn, or just something like this where it's a positional weakness. And if you want to get to the next level of your play, if you're 800, if you're 1,000, 1,500, 1,900, you want to get to that next level, whatever that is, you need to be able to, on your end, play safe developing moves, safe chess, and then really keep a keen eye out for weaknesses in your opponent's position, because everyone's going to have weaknesses all the way up to GMs. For GMs, it's going to be a difference of like plus 0.1 versus plus 0.2, so it's like the most minor of differences. Before that, it's going to be positional mistakes. It's going to be creating backwards pawns that can be exploited, and it's your job to be able to identify that and exploit it. So here, I picked up that is not that's not a good exchange for him. If anything, that favors me, and I definitely don't want to let him get 2 rook stacked there. So I thought, let me take and start putting pressure on that backwards pawn, because I don't think he has any other resource, because it's an endgame when we each only have 1 rook. It's not like we have, a rook and each, like a rook and bishop or a rook and knight, where you have kind of other defensive resources available to you. It's so, when you have such limited pieces on the board, you really can't afford to make such glaring issues like that. Even though it's only +1, +2, so it's not like the game is a dead lost position. But if you're not conscious of the weakness in your position and you're not actively trying to defend it or create counterplay and try to prevent any worsening of your position, or you create weaknesses in your opponent's position, then you're just going to get blown off the board. And a point +1, +2 position is going to go to +3, +4, and to a completely lost game. And that's what happened here. A 2100 player, a very strong player, but just one positional weakness lost him the game, and he wasn't able to come back for it. This is a pretty good... You can see I'm only at 9 minutes on my time. We were kind of blitzing out moves, because a lot of it, up to move 20, was just pretty simple chess. It was developing moves for the opening, book moves up to move 5. It was just a lot of exchanges in the center, nothing too crazy, no one's blundering, there's no obvious weaknesses, and then we each have a lot of time on our clock, and he makes an unfortunate positional mistake. And it was, thankfully it kind of worked out in my favor that I was able to identify that, but that's how this game went. A just slight positional mistake lost him the game. That's really what it was. So that's the kind of lesson from this one, is that you play solid, you play safe, and you get ready, you get your pieces ready to pounce on your opponent's position when he makes a mistake. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Probably going to look to do more tactics practice in the next one, maybe some endgame practice. But thank you very much for watching.